Hello and welcome to On the Preds with me, your host, Alex Doherty of A to Z Sports, and Sean Smith of On the Forecheck, wearing his championship Atlanta Braves glasses. Those things look amazing.
They're
Those
nice.
are great. This is the show where we recap, not baseball, but we recap the Nashville Predators. We talk hockey, we complain about things, we rant, we put things into perspective. Tell me about these glasses. What's going on with these?
So I don't know if you're aware or not, Alex, but earlier in the week, the Atlanta Braves won the World Series.
I am very much aware of this.
So it coincides with my son's birthday today, so we're having a Braves and Preds, obviously, themed birthday party. So we've
That's
got
amazing.
got about 10 of these babies that we're going to spread around.
That's awesome. I love it. I love it. What a great time to have a birthday party. How old is your son again?
He is 7 today.
Can you imagine being a 7-year-old watching your team win the World Series? That's perfect. That's perfection.
You know, what's funny is we were talking about this at the house because, I've got a about to be 12-year-old daughter and my son just turned 7. I got to see my team when I was younger win the World Series when I was 10 in 1989. So that was a big deal for me. And you realize, like, I haven't seen that happen since then. So you better enjoy this while you're getting the chance because you don't know how long it's going to be. And my wife is a lifelong Braves fan, and she's like, "Yeah, look, it's been since 1995. You better relish it while you can." So the fact that they're getting it young is awesome. I'm really happy for them.
1989. Is that the Twins?
That was the Oakland A's.
Oh, Oakland A's, right? Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah,
that was the Battle of the Bay World Series, the Earthquake World Series, all that good stuff.
There you go. Yes, of course. Yes,
I lived in
the Athletics, and that was That's a good World Series.
It was. I lived in the Bay Area. That's where I grew up. So
That's right.
It was big for me.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the Nashville Predators. It's been an important week for them. A lot of big things have happened, and a lot of some not so good things, some not great news, but then also a couple of nice wins. So let's go ahead and talk about it. Let's get into the recaps. First of all, Tuesday against the Calgary Flames. Everyone's favorite. A Tuesday against Calgary. That's what everyone loves. But this one was not a snoozer. This was the Predators ended up getting a win here. Luke Cunnin tips home his first goal of the year to make it 1-0 Preds. Then Calgary answers right back on the power play. Matthew Tkachuk, who is a former future Buffalo Sabre. He was supposed to be going to the Buffalo Sabres for Jack Eichel. That never happened.
No.
But he scores. And then Filip Forsberg, more on him later, puts the Preds back on top 2-1. And then the second period was pretty forgettable. Only 13 shots by both teams in that middle frame. Then in the third period, UC Saros does a lot, keeps it close. Oliver Killington, which is the best name ever, ties it for Calgary. And then Matt Duchene gets the win off of a nice pass from Mikhail Granlund on a 2-on-1 in overtime. And the Predators win 3-2 is the final. Let's go ahead and talk about this game Tuesday against Calgary. Now, keep in mind, this was the Braves World Series game, so I did not watch a ton of this game, but I did watch enough of it to know what happened. What do you remember?
So I'll tell you, it was really kind of interesting because, like I mentioned before, my wife's a lifelong Braves fan, so that was on in the living room. Everybody was watching in there. The kids were watching in there. I was the lone outcast in the back, watching the Preds game. And I was trying to give updates. I watched the first period. I watched the second period, and everyone was like, you're gonna miss this. So I had to head out and watch the end of the World Series. And as I was kind of walking back and forth, I said, hey, it's tied up going into overtime and all this stuff. And then, of course, the Braves win. And right in the middle of that celebration, I walk to the back, and I'm watching overtime, and then boom, they scored, and it was really, at this house, it was a massive cause for celebration. It was all of the things you could want.
Yeah, I have to, just full disclosure, I did not watch one single second of this Preds game live. I didn't watch any of it live. I watched all the highlights. I went back and watched, all the goals and everything, and I knew what was happening. I mean, I was kind of tracking it on my phone. But just to be honest, I mean, when your team is in the World Series and on the verge of winning it for the first time in 26 years, that was pretty important to me. Yeah. So anyways, but having said all that, it was a nice win. I mean, Calgary was a tough opponent for the Predators. And Matt Duchene has a really nice goal. We have another goal from Matt Duchene that we're going to show in a little bit. But yeah, I mean, that's an important win. Kick the road trip off with a nice overtime win. So.
You have to be realistic too. And I mean, if anyone's going to say like, "Oh, you didn't watch the game live," I mean, if let's just say the stars lined up and the Predators were in the Stanley Cup Finals and they were, I don't know, up 3 games and they had a big lead, I don't think we would watch, a Tuesday night baseball game against, Miami or anything like that. I don't think it would be the most important thing in the world. So.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's okay. Don't feel bad. I love that Matt Duchene goal though, and that was he was out there for quite a while on that goal, and that was the big thing. Was he was probably ready for a change, had been ready for a change for a while, but the opportunity showed up, and he got down the ice and made it happen. Yeah. I think we've said that the recurring theme is that's what you want out of these top line guys, is you want that commitment, you want that drive to make things happen. And I think you're seeing that, and that's the best you could ask for right now.
Yeah, that is great. And more on Matt Duchene later. We're going to talk about his really nice start and his goal on Friday night as well. Let's go ahead and jump into the next night in Edmonton. They had a back-to-back Calgary, Edmonton. And we learned before the game, I want to say it was like an hour before the game, that Filip Forsberg is out with an upper body injury and is deemed week to week. Mark Borowiecki also injured, but less serious. He was actually skating yesterday, I think. But Filip Forsberg out with an upper body. We don't know anything about the injury. We just know that he's out week to week, as is becoming a trend for him. So we'll talk more about that too. Conor Ingram is in net for this game for his second ever NHL start. And for a while, he does really well. But remember, it's the Edmonton Oilers. They're 7-1. I think they're like 8-1 or 9-1 now. They're definitely 8-1. I think they're 9-1. Very good team. And the Predators, they keep it close at 1-1, and then it's 2-1 Oilers in the second. But then in the third, the Oilers just pour it on. David finishes with 2 assists. Draisaitl has 2 goals and an assist, and then Edmonton just dominates the third period. They are very, very good. Much better than the Predators right now, that's for sure. 5-2 is the final. I don't know that there's much we can take from this, but what do you remember about this game?
I remember that this is a funny thing. You go back to how long has it been since the Predators have seen some of these teams. And while I will say that you do see a lot of names changing when you revisit a team you haven't seen in a while, what hasn't changed with the Oilers is their speed. And, this was the case the last time the teams played each other. It doesn't matter if you're playing that slow, heavy, wear them down game. You've got to catch them to play it. And that's what makes it hard against a team like this, is there's some fast guys beyond McDavid and Draisaitl. So it's I don't know. You're going to have to either put on an offensive show and just get really lucky, or you're going to have to catch them and wear them out in order to beat them. And that's been the routine now since the last time the teams met, which has been quite a while.
Part of me thinks that the Oilers will eventually regress and become that team that just loses games that it shouldn't lose, and goaltending falls apart, and defensively they're not as good. But I really think the Duncan Keith ad was a sneaky good ad. I mean, the Chicago Blackhawks are a mess for a lot of reasons right now, and like
so bad.
Them just dealing off a guy like Duncan Keith, who's not been awful. I mean, he's been fine. His contract is big, that's for sure. But he's not been awful. I think he's been okay for the Oilers. He's been fine. And Seth Jones has not been good for Chicago. So that was an odd move. I think that was really good for Edmonton, getting a leader like that and a proven winner. Edmonton's very good. We'll probably talk more about that game as well. Let's go ahead and wrap up the next game, Friday night in Vancouver. And lo and behold, for the Nashville Predators, the special teams demons get exercised. The Predators had given up, listen to this, 19 power play goals in their last 10 games against the Canucks, including 3 games ago now, 5 power play goals in 1 game, which is insane. And they'd only scored 6 power play goals themselves. So the special teams was this huge gap with Vancouver. But in this game, The Predators go 5 for 5 on the PK. They shut them out on the Vancouver power play, and they go 2 for 3 on their own power play. So a huge swing, and that is basically what won this game. Roman Josi scores first. Matt Duchene had a nice breakaway goal, which I'll show in a second, and then also Philip Tomasino had a really slick power play goal that we'll also show as well. Special teams was the key to the night. UC Saros was also spectacular. He had 26 saves, including at least 2 point-blank saves that were really, really nice. Predators win this one 3-2 final. To really talk about this game, I first want to show actually the Tomasino goal, because I think this was and I want to show his quote after the game. So let's talk about that after we show this goal. This was the goal that eventually the game-winning goal from Philip Tomasino to make it 3 that led to the 3-2 final. Here you go.
Here it goes to the side, and Tucker Pullman gambles, spreads out. Pullman comes across, and you can see him sprawl out, tries to cut off the pass, but he doesn't. So Thatcher Demko's in at the mercy.
Just an excellent play all around. That is what you want to see from your power play. But I want to play this clip too really quick. This is Philip Tomasino after the game talking about this goal. And this was in response to a question I had for him about that play there. How much of that play was creativity and instinct by the players on the ice, by you guys on the ice, and how much of it was something that had been coached into their play there. So like how much of it was coaching versus how much of it was just player skill, I guess. And here was his response.
Yeah, I think lots of practice for sure, but we kind of talked about that on the bench, and we were actually talking about going from Novak to Cunnin to me back door, and actually right before I had scored that goal, so it's kind of funny that it worked out. So I think just obviously we've practiced a lot in practice, but it was kind of funny because we just talked about doing that play and it ended up working out. So it was a pretty cool moment, and it was a great goal for us for sure.
So they predicted it. They called it, right?
Love it.
That to me is pretty awesome that they were talking about that exact play. And I think it says a lot of things about the power play. I mean, I don't want to get too much into, well, the coaches don't need to be there. They don't need to be influencing them anymore. Clearly the players are better at drawing up things. I don't think that's fair, but it is interesting that they knew that they could make that happen, right? Tommy Novak, Luke Cunnin, and Philip Tomasino knew that they could make those passes, that it was going to be there, and that Tomasino knew he could finish on the back door pretty easily. So what did you think about that?
So, I think you're right. You don't want to say, oh, well, the coaches don't need to be there. It's not important, because clearly that's not the case. But there is something to be said for the guys that are on the ice, that are doing the work, that know their capabilities, know what they can do, and they have a feel for what's going on in the game. And one of the things to really think about, and this is what's always shocking to me, is whenever we're watching a game, we're watching it like if you and I are covering the game at Bridgestone, we've got like an eagle eye view from way up high. If you watch any football game on TV, you're looking down at that field. When you're down level on that field, you see things in a totally different way. Yep. And even the coaches being off to the side aren't seeing what the players are seeing. So having that experience of being out on the ice, knowing what they're capable of, and knowing how the game's been going, seeing those tendencies of what maybe the goalkeeper's doing on the other team, or how they're able to draw him off to one side and kind of get him to bite on it. That's what you want your players to be able to do, is take the coaching they've been given, take their skill set, and apply it to the game. And when it works out like that, that's great. And you want that to keep happening. But of course, if it stops working, that's when you got to quit being creative out there and just do what we say. So there's, again, like everything, it's a fine line, but it worked out and it was beautiful. And I couldn't ask for more right now.
The biggest issue with the power play for years now has been the lack of cross ice passing, and this has been an issue in at 5-on-5 as well. But specifically, the power play has been a problem. And if you watch the power play as much as we have over the last several years, I mean, it is just I could close my eyes, hear that the Predators on the power play, and be describing exactly where the puck is going every time. Like I just know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's when they gain the zone, which is not very often, they're going to have a triangle setup with Roman Josi at the top, Filip Forsberg on one side, Tolvanen on the other, or whoever the other side is, and they're just going to pass it, and they're just going to keep passing, and they're never going to go through the middle of the ice. They're going to have someone down low that's going to occasionally get and receive the puck and send it around and rim it around, and then they're just going to keep doing that. The cross ice passes are almost never there, and they almost never attempt them. And watch any respectable power play, and they do that all the time. Tampa, even Chicago back in the day when they were really good. Vegas is good at that. I mean, Colorado, all of the good power plays have this really dynamic passing across the middle. And here's the other thing. They try it more often. It doesn't work every time, but they also try it more often. This team is has this blinder where they're just like, okay, all we're gonna do is we got to get it back to Roman Josi at the top of the key or not the key, but the top of the zone, because we know that he's going to be able to maintain possession. They're so scared about losing possession and about not making something happen that they don't ever try it anymore. So then when you see a play like that where Tomasino's on the back door and Cunnin finds him, it's just great. That's a great thing to see.
Well, it seems shocking too because it's so different than what you're used to. And the reality is, if we saw that happen a lot more and we saw them miss with that a lot more, we might be saying like, oh, hey, it worked out this time. Whereas, I think that has a higher chance of working out more often than those perimeter passes. And they hardly ever work. And of course, you go back a few years to the whole, the blue line shots over and over again with the idea of that's one way to get the puck up close is to fire it in as hard as you can and then try to clean up the scraps after that. I mean, sometimes that works, but I think you're a lot better off trying to open up some space on that goalie, get the puck across the ice, and find him, where he's got a bite on the other side, and you've got the back door wide open. Yeah. You need to see more of that. That's what I want to see, and I see it happening, and I like it, and I feel like they're going to take it away from me.
And they got so used to, they got used to for years. Obviously, the Shea Weber on the power play, PK Subban when he was there, but even Roman Josi now, like they got so used to these shots from the blue line that just they work every now and then, and when they work, they look cool, but they're just not the most productive way to score, especially on the power play. And then not only that, but they also got used to having Forsberg on the wing on that right circle scoring with his wrist shot. I mean, he's good at that, but he doesn't. It's not like an Ovechkin level of success rate here. I mean, it's not like people are not going to call it the Forsberg spot anytime soon because he doesn't score every time there. He does it well. He's very good at it. Tolvanen, same thing. He hasn't really had a chance on that left side, I don't think yet. I mean, he's not really. I don't think he's scored on the power play yet, if I'm remembering correctly. I don't think he has. This year, I mean, and. So you need playmakers, you need guys who can read plays, you need guys who are willing to make those passes like we saw. So, anyways, we've kind of hit that pretty hard. So I want to move on to Matt Duchene.
Okay.
Before we talk about Matt Duchene, I want to show his goal from Friday night in Vancouver. By the way, if I didn't mention, Predators won that game in Vancouver. 3-2 is the final. And they've won 5 of the last 6 games, which is, the Preds are bad, but they also might be good. I don't know. 5 of 6 games, that's pretty good. Who knows? So Matt Duchene, let's look at this goal. There's a lot of reasons to like Matt Duchene's play right now, and this player here is one of them. And a couple specific things about what he does here I think that are really good to see. But let's go ahead and watch it.
Elias Pettersson. Now Brock Besser is the other defenseman. Besser is the guy filling in for Quinn Hughes, and he can't quite get back on Matt Duchene, what a move. Fake shot, and you can see Thatcher Demko goes for that shot. Drops the shoulder, and Thatcher Demko just...
Whew, that is one goal right there. So when I see that play, when I watch that goal from Matt Duchene, he might as well be wearing a Colorado Avalanche jersey, and it might as well be 2014, because that is what he looks like right there. He's playing with speed. He's playing with decisiveness where he knows what he's going to do with the puck, and he finishes. And from 2011 through 2014, That was Matt Duchene in Colorado. He was incredibly good with the puck. He was finishing plays like that. He was playing with speed. That's what I see right there.
Well, that's what you want to see, isn't it? I mean, I think what's hard is you look back to when the Predators made that three-way trade where Duchene was involved, but they landed Turris. You're talking about 2011 to 2014, whereas 2017 is 3 seasons removed from that.
Yeah.
And then you look ahead to, which unfortunately, the Turris experiment did not yield the results that anyone had hoped, obviously. But you pick up Duchene a couple of years later, a couple of seasons later, develops this really strong and fast relationship with Laviolette. And then you see, they're kind of on the same page about how they like to play hockey. And Laviolette's gone not too long after that. Hines comes in, and then you're just finding your way. And so I think I'm hoping that one thing I've been saying all along is that, if you give John Hines time, he's going to get things going the way they need to be going. And I think hopefully there's some kind of synergy between those two now, where that's kind of what you see happening, is that he's able to start playing the game he wants to play. Hines knows how to use him the right way. And he's, I don't like to use the term feeling himself, because that's what the kids would say, and I'm clearly not one of the kids, but he seems like he is a lot more who he's supposed to be. He seems like he's more comfortable in that gold jersey, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And he's willing to enforce his will, or impose his will upon the other team, and that's what you want to see. He's out there doing it. It's good.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And the other thing about his start is, so he has 10 points in his first 11 games. That he's got a 2.9 points per 60 minutes, but he's shooting 13.5%. So it's not like he's shooting 30% and that's going to come down. He's not shooting like a crazy percentage, right? He's not like you can find tons of players who've had great starts who have had crazy high shooting percentages where you just knew that was going to come down. His PDO is reasonable. His shooting percentage is very reasonable. It's right around his career average. He's just making more plays. He's shooting more. He's got, first of all, he's also got better line mates. That doesn't hurt. He's no longer he's no longer out there with, Nick Cousins and Calle Järnkrok and Rocco Grimaldi, all fine players, but they're not Mikael Granlund, and they're not Filip Forsberg, and they're not Ryan Johansson. So he's got a little bit better start here going on, and I think that's really encouraging for this team. I mean, obviously they need it. That's good to see. I don't know how much we can really expect that to continue. I mean, we'll see what the next few weeks looks like. I think the biggest issue right now is that Filip Forsberg is out with an injury. What did you make of that? What do you make of Filip Forsberg being out, and what's that going to look like for the next few weeks for this team?
It's hard for me, because I feel like we've kind of come to a point as a fan base where you're expecting it to happen at some point. And I don't like that feeling, is, Forsberg can get off to a hot start. And you're like, wow, he's going to score 82 goals this season. He's scoring a goal a game, and everything's great. And then there's some kind of injury, takes him out for several weeks. He comes back, and then it takes him a while to find it. We've seen it happen where he gets off to a very slow start, gets injured, comes back, starts slow again, then gets hot. And you're like, man, what would a full season of healthy Filip Forsberg look like? And I think, I asked John Hines after, I want to say it was the Edmonton game, where you saw Conor Ingram coming in to give UC Saros a break on the second night of a back-to-back. You saw Ben Harper come in with Borowiecki out, and you saw Rocco Grimaldi come in with Filip Forsberg out. And I think, what you're going to see is, and it's not as simple as it was last season. Last season, that taxi squad made it very easy to have players ready to go in. And with a team like the Predators, it really benefited them because they didn't have a lot of COVID issues like some teams did. But because that taxi squad is available to them, you kind of had this rotating cast. Well, at this point, if you have an injured forward, you get Rocco Grimaldi, and he's going to come in and play. But Hines said that he thinks it speaks very well to that next man up mentality that they had embraced so much last year. He thinks it's even going to be, more so this year, because that next man up is going to come from such a limited pool. Everybody knows that we're one injury away from me being on that ice and being ready to go. I don't know how much line juggling you're going to see, how much line blendering you're going to see, but as long as you're getting results, I don't think it's going to change too much. You don't have a lot of wiggle room to bring in another forward without sending somebody down. Whether that's, you'd have to send, say, Grimaldi down to bring somebody else up at this point, or Novak down. But why would you send Novak down at this point? Why would you send Grimaldi down?
I think it would have to be. I think it would have to be Novak. Grimaldi would have to clear waivers, and I doubt that he would. But the Forsberg thing is really frustrating for a lot of reasons. I mean, obviously they need him in the lineup because he's their most dangerous individual forward, just in terms of scoring. He can do a lot of things that a lot of other players can't. But what does this do for this season? I mean, like, it's a very strange situation with him where obviously the contract talks have not gotten anywhere, and but you also can't trade a guy who, well, you also lose a little bit of trade value if the guy's just sitting there injured.
Right.
So, I would imagine that teams would still, if he's healthy, if he gets out of this and he's healthy and he's back to scoring goals again, his value is probably just the same as it ever was. But if this injury lingers on into February and he's unable to be traded, then the Predators are just screwed, because the price of him is going to go down. Teams are not going to pay very much for a guy like that if they don't know he's going to be back. And but they also can't just let him sit on the team the rest of the year and then not sign him. Right. So, man, it's frustrating. Like, you need the guy to be back. You need him to be healthy. So.
It's not a discussion that a lot of people are going to want to hear either, because for so many people, the idea of a Predators team without Forsberg is not appealing at all. But I mean, in reality, that's what we have right now, is a Predators team without Forsberg, and they're putting together wins. It's not ideal, but it's also a very potential reality in the future, because, like you said, something's going to have to happen at some point. Right.
I think I tweeted something like, I don't know, this must have been at least 3 years ago now, probably more like 4 years ago, when Forsberg was scoring 20 to 30 goals a year, and just looking at the pace and looking at his contract, I want to say it was 4 years ago, probably sometime around 2017, probably around the Stanley Cup final stuff. I remember thinking and looking at the numbers and being like, well, Filip Forsberg is going to break the Preds all-time goal scoring record, which is 210 with David Legwand. He will 100% break that by the time this contract is up, because at that point he had 5 years left on his contract. He'd already scored 60, 70 goals. And I was like, he's going to do this. And now that's not going to happen. I mean, it's straight up not going to happen. Now, he could still break it if they re-sign him, obviously, if they re-sign him to another contract. But that's not going to happen for a lot of reasons. Number one, he's had injuries. Number two, they had the COVID-shortened season a couple times. And then now he's got another injury when he needs 28 goals to get there. So that I don't think that's going to happen. And now you're like, man, who's ever going to unseat David Legwand in terms of goal scoring? It doesn't seem like that's going to happen. And that's pretty sad, because 210 career goals is not that high of a number for a franchise. So that's kind of sad. But
well, I want to say two things. It sounds like you're just adding some fuel to the fire and trying to get Forsberg back and really get him fired up. And I hope that's what it is. But I want to say that if things don't go well and Forsberg ends up in a different team at the trade deadline or next season, and he doesn't break that score or the goal record for the team, I'm going to say, he said, who's going to do it? It's going to be Philip Tomasino.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Get that out there now. And it's going to happen
on the record early. November of 2021, Shaun called it. I don't hate that. That's probably because he's at least probably going to be around a lot longer. I mean, who knows what'll happen, but I think he'll be, I mean, that's a good thing to talk about. I mean, like Tomasino, I was looking at this recently. He's obviously, it's very, very short in the season. I mean, we've only had a few games, 11. He's played in 9 games. 3 goals and 1 assist. But the guy is 20 years old, and the Predators have not had a 20-year-old come in and even have that kind of production in a while. Most of their 20-year-olds are in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
They don't really get a solid shot until 21, 22, like Tolvanen, for example, Arvidsson, Forsberg. Like that guy's already producing, and I don't think they can take him out of the lineup anytime soon. And just a 20-year-old, so that's got to be really good to see.
I love it. I'm excited. I think there's potential there for that. So I just want to make sure everybody heard it now in 2021. So they're like, he said this was coming. I don't think it's that crazy of a bet, but we'll see.
Let's talk a little bit about the defense because, and actually, I want to talk about a good thing on the defense first that I kind of didn't prepare a lot for, but I just wanted to mention. The top 4 has been pretty good, and I think the best, obviously, the best pairing has been the Josi Fabro pairing. Dante Fabro is having a great start to the season. I mean, we should at least mention that. I mean, the Dante Fabro leads the team in. I'm sorry, not leads the team, but I'm sorry, I just said that. He's among the best defenders. Him and Roman Josi are among the team leaders in Corsi C4 and shot attempts 4 percentage, expected goals, not allowing a ton of chances the other way. They've been a great pairing, and I think that's really encouraging to see.
I think it's the Dante Fabro revenge tour, personally. I think he caught a lot of grief last season. How much of it was merited, that's up to the public to judge. But I think realistically, I think everybody tends to forget that he came straight to the NHL from college. Yeah. And he wasn't exactly thrown into a real charity situation because it was, straight into the playoffs for you, young man.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be taking your finals, but instead you're in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And, his poor start to his whole career has been some playoffs, shortened season, odd season, and now this should be his first full season. And I think when you look at all of those interruptions, it's just, I'm not going to use the word fair, but I think it's definitely not been the greatest hand he's been dealt. So I think some normalcy, the benefit of a full training camp, the benefit of just being able to do normal things when it comes to going to the arena and practicing and being with the team is going to do him a world of good. So I'm glad that it's starting to show, that people are starting to notice it, because quite frankly, everybody was just talking bad about him for a long time, and I think it made a lot of people sad. A lot of the Fabro family was disappointed with the way the fan base was reacting.
And he gets this contract this past summer, $2.4 million for over 2 years, so two years of that. A really pretty reasonable contract for the Predators, considering the production they're getting out of it right now.
Yeah.
It's not really a prove it contract because it's not a bad deal. I mean, it's $4.8 million. That's not bad. I think that it. Do what?
It's enough for me. I could live off that the rest of my life.
I certainly could too. We could share that and we'd be fine, right?
Just fine.
But I just got through talking about Tomasino being a 20-year-old. Fabro made his debut at 20 years old. Only played in 4 games that year. That was the 2019 season when they played Dallas. He didn't play in that series, I don't think. Or actually, maybe he did play in that series. I can't remember. But then he's been the whole next year was his first year, that the shutdown year, the 60 whatever games it was, 19 and 20. So yeah, he's had not only to leave college and go directly into the NHL, but also had the most disruptive couple of hockey seasons you can imagine as the first 2 developmental seasons in the league. So it makes sense that he's now finally starting to figure it out. After all of this that's happened, he's had only 1 training camp over the last 3 years. So the guy finally is getting a chance to do that. So yeah, that's a great point by you. I don't think anyone was necessarily thinking ill will towards Dante Fabro the way they might be about a different Preds defenseman we might talk about in a second. But Dante Fabro definitely proven it. Yeah, you're right. So let's move on to that topic. So I know that a lot of people don't like Ben Harper right now, to say the least. And look, let's talk just real about this for a second. Ben Harpur really does not belong in the NHL right now. That doesn't mean anything bad about him as a person, but he really isn't an NHL defenseman. I mean, when you watch things that happen on the ice frequently, he really just belongs in the AHL. I think he, even in the AHL, I think he would be bottom pairing defenseman in the AHL, just based on what we're seeing. I mean, the guy has a certain set of skills that work. I mean, he's got some size. He can body up guys in the defensive zone, but in the NHL, it just isn't there. But he continues to get time on the ice over someone like a Phillip Myers, who the Predators traded away Ryan Ellis to get. That's confusing. And then there's also other defensemen who you feel like could probably, if they were struggling, you would feel better about. One of those is Myers, who's a pretty young guy. If Jeremy Davies was up here, if David Ferentz was up here, even if Allard was up here, I mean, these are all guys that I think would be, if they were struggling in this situation, you'd be like, growing pains. They'll get out of it. They'll become better players. But when it's Ben Harpur, who's 28 or something like that, and he's not a future prospect by any means. 27. He's 27 years old. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. This whole situation doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Here's the thing, and I think if I have made myself known for anything in the time that I've been covering this team, I'm the champion of the third pairing defenders, and I don't know if it was just the product of the overwhelming positive feelings I have for Tony Botetto. I don't know, but my thing is, I'll say this: I think a lot of third pairing defenders catch a lot of crap from a lot of people because they're not top pairing defenders, and they're not expected to be out there for 25 minutes a night. And the reason they're not expected to be out there for 25 minutes a night is because they're, quite frankly, not going to be able to play at the level that the 25-minute a night defender is going to be able to play at. And now that I've got that out there, okay, so take away some of that layer of expectation from your third pairing defender and say, okay, what do we need them to go out there to do? Well, we got to be realistic when it comes to a budget for a team, when it comes to the salary cap. Your third pairing defender is not going to take up much of that cap space. So you can't expect them to be an $8 million a year. Well, maybe that's not the best comparison, but you can't expect them to be Roman Josi. You've got to have lower expectations. I think what everybody wants to see is, okay, you're not going to be out there that long. We need you to be solid defensively for a couple of shifts every cycle, and just don't do anything stupid. Stay on your man. Get to the net, just make sure bad stuff doesn't happen while you're out there. Just you're there to give the other guys a chance to catch their breath, get their legs back under them, and be ready to go. If you can just do that, we're going to be happy.
I hear what you're saying. Expectations. Yes, that definitely makes sense. But why are they not playing Phillip Myers?
I don't know.
What are the expectations for him? That's a guy that you traded away a possible Norris Trophy winner on a big contract, mind you, but a possible Norris Trophy winner to get him and Cody Glass, and neither one of those players are playing right now. And the biggest surprise of those two players not playing is Phillip Myers, because that guy played a ton in Philadelphia. He played already at the beginning of this year, and then now he doesn't seem to have any injury designation, and he's just a healthy scratch. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me at all.
Okay, take that, and I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. It makes a lot more sense from the way you're thinking about things to have Myers out there. But I have to say, you've seen Coach Hines. You've talked to him as much as I have. He values identity when it comes to lines, and you have to assume that as much as everyone gets super pumped up about the fourth line, or what's been playing as the third line, the herd line, there's got to be an identity for that third pair. And I don't know. I know that he wants big guys out there. He wants big guys that aren't afraid to throw their weight around, guys that can be out there and punch somebody in the face if they need to, somebody who can manhandle guys on the other team. That identity right now seems to be the most important for that third pairing. Is that the role you want Phillip Myers playing right now? Maybe not. I know that he started the season wearing the cage. He had some kind of injury to his nose, to his face. For whatever reason, maybe that's just not who they want out there bumping into people and being extra physical. I don't know if that's a trend that's going to continue, but I do know that Harper's out there because Borowiecki's not, and Borowiecki's not because of the injury. I'm not saying
the depth chart for that left side pairing, or the left side of that pairing, seems to be Borowiecki, Harper, and then Myers right now.
Unless, for right now, and whether that's because they're just, look, it's nothing that requires putting him on IR. We just don't want him out there in a position where we're going to say, hey, go be extra physical, and then he might end up getting injured again or hurt worse. And that's all I can think.
Yeah, on the interest of size, let's not forget that Phillip Myers is 6'5". So Phillip Myers is 6'5". He's not quite as big as Ben Harper, but he's pretty close. I mean, he's no puny guy. He's not like a real skinny. He's not Ryan Ellis. He's a bigger dude. So like he can bring that element. The problem that I have is that we just haven't even seen them try it yet. I mean, he played in 3 games. I think all 3 of those games were losses. Or maybe at least 2 of them were. And I don't, that doesn't make any sense to me. And I think from an asset management standpoint, it's also really bad because why did you feel comfortable acquiring this guy if you weren't going to play him? So that's my biggest confusion.
I get that. I totally get that. And I don't claim to understand everything that's happening all the time on the team, but my guess is that for whatever reason, that is I know as the head coach what Ben Harper can bring to the ice in every, on every aspect. I know what he can bring physically. I know what he can bring defensively. And right now I'm more interested in that physical presence than I am in the defensive capabilities. Maybe that's what it is. It doesn't sound like a great answer, but I mean, that could realistically be what it is.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Let's move on to a couple other topics. I know that one thing that you wanted to mention was Conor Ingram. So David Riddick comes back from the COVID protocol. Still haven't seen him in net, but might get a chance coming up. I don't know. But he comes back. Conor Ingram gets sent down to AHL. I think that's a good thing for Milwaukee because they've been in dire need of having a good goaltender now. Milwaukee's not off to a very good start, so I think they'll really use him. But what did you think of that? Conor Ingram Conor Ingram getting sent down when David Riddick returned.
Well, I think, and the reason I really wanted to talk about it is because just monitoring the social media, you see people, what I would say, overreacting, and not necessarily overreacting, but reacting out of a place of not really knowing how the game works when it comes to player movement like that. And a lot of people see this move happen the day after what some might say was a bad loss to Edmonton. Oh. But it's not, it had nothing to do with the loss. They didn't sign Riddick for Ingram to be the backup. They signed Riddick for Riddick to be the backup. Ingram got the chances he got because Riddick was on the COVID list or in the COVID protocol. And now that he is healthy and back and ready to play, the best thing for Conor Ingram in regards to his development is to go to Milwaukee and be their starter, as opposed to getting the second half of a back-to-back throughout the season when this is more than likely the guy that the Predators want to be their number 2 next season. It's a lot better for everybody if he's able to come in next season, having played a majority of games, to be ready to go as a backup instead of playing a few games this season and then playing a few games next season. I think that makes more sense. Riddick was the intended backup this season. He's healthy now. You're not going to carry 3 goaltenders on your roster. So give the guy a chance to play.
Milwaukee in his first game back, which was actually last night. He played for Milwaukee against the Wild, Iowa Wild. 5-2 win. Got the win for them. So like I think it's as much about everything that you said is completely accurate, and everything you said is perfect. I won't repeat anything. David Riddick is the backup to UC Soros. Conor Ingram really needs to get a lot of starts. He needs to play every day, except on back-to-backs, and that he will do that in Milwaukee. young guy. I think he's potentially going to be on this team for a very long time if UC Soros doesn't sign a long time, and then when Askarov comes over, Conor Ingram will probably be a staple of this team if they really want him to be. So yeah, that makes sense. And then the other thing that you wanted to mention was something about Edmonton, something about McDavid and Draisaitl. Is that what you were going to talk about?
Yeah, and I don't know if you picked up on this yourself, or B, if it even bothers you at all. But the last two times that the teams have played, it seems like in the first time the last time, this past week was in Edmonton, but the time before that, I want to say it was like the night of the tornado in Nashville. They played in Nashville, or maybe I think that's when they played in Nashville the last time. But it was really surprising because I remember that was back when we were still down in the locker room and everything after the game. And it seems like, and of course, Edmonton has just tons of media, a lot of people that cover the Canadian teams like that. So when you have one of those Canadian teams come to Nashville, it's always a little bit like, wow, there's a lot of people in here. And we go into that coaches conference, I guess, and you had extra people, and they're there to cover the Oilers. And they had sent someone in, and he had asked John Hines what it was like playing against. Well, what was it like playing against Leon Draisaitl? And of course, I think that was the night Draisaitl scored 17 goals against the team or something ridiculous. I mean, it was like I love Leon Draisaitl. I love him. I love to watch him play. I think outside of the Predators, he's probably one of my favorite players to watch. And it just seemed odd to come in to the coaches meeting after just a savage beating by the opposing team and say to the coach, what was it like playing against that guy? Like, what do you expect the man to say? Like, well, there's a lot of flaws in his game, some things. He's like, no, he kicked our butts. Like, he's great. Like, it just seems weird. Like, I don't want to say it's kicking somebody when they're down, but it just seemed out of place to me. And then after the game this week, it was the same thing. Somebody asked Roman Josi, what was it like playing against Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl? What do you want the man to say? Like, what's he supposed to? I mean, okay, look, they just beat us. We didn't love it. It didn't feel good. And now you're going to make me talk about how great they are as players? Why don't do that? Why would you do that?
Very weird. That's a very weird thing to ask.
Weird.
I think part of it, and I'm just going to take a stab here. I'm pretty sure that I've only seen that from a lot of the Canadian teams' media, from Edmonton, from Toronto, from Montreal, especially. Those three teams, they have a certain media type that comes in, and it especially Toronto. I mean, Edmonton, I think you're right, but especially Toronto. Like it when they come in, it's like the entire narrative of the game is only about what the Toronto Maple Leafs did or didn't do. It is very rarely about what the Islanders did or didn't do. And I get it. They're covering that team and whatever. But yeah, you're right. It is very annoying to hear that. And having said that, Connor McDavid is amazing.
No one's trying to take that away from him. It's just silly to me. I think back to the Red Wings game last year, or was it last year? I don't know.
Which team?
What was the game where Grimaldi scored 4 goals in the game? Who was that?
The 4 goal. Yeah, what was that? Who did they play? I'll look it up real quick.
That's my memory is failing me this morning. I wasn't planning on talking about it, or I would have had some notes ready. But
it was Red Wings. Yeah, 7-1.
Yeah. So imagine after that game, just a soul-crushing loss, just devastation, right? You and I were like, hey, let's go talk to the Red Wings, and we go in there. We're like, so tell me what it's like playing against Rocco Grimaldi. I mean, that's not going to go over well.
Apparently, the way you're talking, we're drunk in this scenario. So yeah, let's go talk to the Red Wings.
We're gonna go down to the Red Wings. Okay, so let me try that again. Let's say that we were going. It's like, no, Alex, maybe tonight, instead of going down into the Predators area, we should go talk to the Detroit Red Wings personnel about how good Rocco Grimaldi is. Does that seem like a plan to you? And you were like, yes, Shaun, I agree. That's the best thing we could do.
Yeah.
We go down, we ask those questions. We're all over. We're one of those, like, look at these idiots,
Yeah.
Like, I don't see that playing the same way.
No.
If anybody else did it about any other player, any American team for sure, and maybe half the teams in Canada too. But it just blows my mind that you're going to go and talk to the coach of the team that just got blown out by somebody and be like, so what's it like playing against him? Oh, it's awesome. I loved it. I love watching them score goals against my team. Come on, give me a break.
Speaking of games, the Predators have 4 of those this week. They start tonight with a road game in Chicago. Very interesting game tonight for the National Predators, because the Chicago Blackhawks just fired their coach, Jeremy Colliton. So they have a new coach who I think is like David King. Is that right? I don't know what it is. Some guy. And that's kind of a tough position for the Predators, because it does feel, I mean, I don't have any stats to back this up, but I feel like teams who've just fired their coach and have a brand new coach come in usually play well. However, if you remember the Predators, when they fired Laviolette, they got destroyed by the Boston Bruins in John Hines' first game. I do remember that.
Was that the night that Trenton fought Chara too?
Oh, was it? I don't know.
I think it was. I
think that was in Boston.
Look, it's been a while.
Maybe not.
It's been a while. I don't know.
So they play Chicago tonight. Now, the Predators really should win that game. The Blackhawks have been terrible. But I kind of just had this funny feeling that Chicago is going to come away with a win there. I don't know
think they've got – I mean, think about that organization and what they've been going through. I mean, take all of that out of it and say, just think about the players on the team right now. I mean, you got a guy like Seth Jones. He's just signed a massive contract. The team is not reaping the benefits of that contract at all. You've got Marc-Andre Fleury, who's just oddly there. Like, well, I don't even know what that is. They've got to feel like, all right, look, things are bad organizationally, team-wise. We just lost our coach. We got to do something. We got to make something happen.
Really have seen – I mean, I feel like I've seen it a ton. I remember when Boston fired their coach, when they fired Claude Julien a few years ago and had Bruce Cassidy come in. Boston went on this tear where they won like 5 or 6 games because they just felt like they were unleashed from this prison.
True.
You see it with I mean, look at what happened with Pittsburgh when Pittsburgh fires their coach, and then I forget his name now. The current Pittsburgh coach goes on and wins 2 Stanley Cups in a row.
Yeah.
And Tampa, same thing happens there. They fire their coach. John Cooper comes in and they win some Stanley Cups. Like you do see this happen. And that's why I've had this strange feeling about tonight that the Chicago Blackhawks might beat the Predators. Then 2 days off, and then the Predators play in Dallas on Wednesday, and then Thursday against St. Louis. I think we'll probably see Dave Riddick in one of those games. If I had to guess, they'd probably put him in the St. Louis game, but I don't know. Maybe they'll, because then Saros would still have 2 nights off. So Saros probably starts in Dallas. Riddick probably starts St. Louis, assuming nothing else happens. And then Saturday, they get a home game. They're back from their road trip against the Arizona Coyotes, who are also bad. They're actually worse than Chicago somehow. And so 2, I mean, at least 2 very winnable games, maybe 3 if you consider Dallas in this week for the Predators. 4 games in the week, and that's it's pretty important. Again, Predators have won 5 of 6 games. Maybe they can stretch this into a nice little tear.
That would be great. I would love to see it. I'm excited to see Riddick play. I mean, that's one of the things I think at the beginning of the season or even in the offseason when they signed Riddick, I said, oh, he's going to be a good backup. I'll be happy to watch him. I mean, we're all dealing with, in different ways, Pekka Rinne's retirement. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited to see him play. I'll go ahead and say I checked. That was definitely the interim head coach game was when they had the Trenton fight.
Okay.
That was January 7th, and I want to say that was the one game when it. Who did they have? Was it Lambert was coaching that game?
Well, I think it was like John Hines was there. He was
there.
He barely met everyone, but yeah, it was like an interim weird situation where he was like behind the bench, but he barely even knew his players' names. I mean, he was.
I recall him doing a lot of this.
Yeah, he was just looking around. Right.
Just,
was
another one. And then
bad.
It was rough.
All right, that's going to do it for our show. Lots of good stuff here. You can check all of our hockey coverage at a2csportsnashville.com. You can also check out On the Forecheck as well, where you can read Shaun and all of the On the Forecheck folks. Follow me on Twitter at AlexDarty1. Follow Shaun on Twitter at SCSOTF, and we will see everyone next week.